what got you to where you are today is not going to get you to where it is that you want to be. You are not going to have that quantum leap where you aspire to be by doing it the same way.
Welcome, everybody, to Sally Speaks Mindset. I am Sally Arkell-Boles, and I am thrilled today to have Julie Murphy join us. And Julie comes to us with over 2.5 decades of experience in the world of finance. She's one of Chicago's go-to experts for financial health and wealth management. She's helped countless individuals reach their goal, transforming lives through uncovering unique solutions that bring abundance and prosperity into focus, which is a beautiful way to be able to bring that into focus, because a lot of people don't really think that that's the goal when we're in the finance industry.
Right? That's so true.
And Julie's one of the industry experts who's been spotlighted on some of the world's most prestigious media outlets, including Oprah Winfrey Show and Lifetime, as well as mainstream press such as Chicago Tribune, CNBC, Financial Advisor magazine, Associated Press, and Reuters. And today, she's titled the talk, Optimize Your Money and Your Life. And so one of the things Julie didn't know about me, I don't believe, is that I was in the finance industry for 13 years, most recently, before I moved into the business that I have today. So there's going to be so much similarity in our conversation today, and I know we're going to dig deep into so many of the concepts. But I thought I'd start over just asking you, what really pushed you to start your own business? What's your story or your journey that you...
Yeah, certainly.
How'd you get here?
I know. Well, it started when I had, I'm one of 12 children.
Oh,
and I was putting myself through school, and I went to the University of Illinois, and I had the opportunity to go work for big 6 accounting firms or start my own. And so when I was 22 years old, I interviewed across the board. And there was this one opportunity that I had that my client base that I would have built would have been my own if they wouldn't be owned by the corporation I worked for. And that started me at 22 years old being a financial planner where I owned everything as opposed to working for corporate America. And 6 years after that, I left that system and actually incorporated. And so this is actually, I incorporated in the year 2000. So I've been 24 years in my own corporation. And it really boils down to the fact that I was working 90-hour weeks to do the right thing for people and satisfy my employment contract. And that's a problem because when, you have these sales expectations, when you're in finance, you have to sell X amount of these products, X amount of these products. Well, if I didn't meet the people that needed those products, I couldn't just try to force the sale. That's just not who I am. And so I was working like 80, 90-hour weeks just trying to get it launched. And then when I said, I really want to operate as the client advocate as opposed to the advocate for a big firm. And I surveyed my clients and I said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you want? And what I heard is that they really wanted somebody to be like their financial quarterback, to represent them. But then they also needed help implementing their plan because there's so many products to sift through. So to this day, my wealth management firm is set up with that. You can pay me to do the consulting of your financial planning and just write us a check. And then if you want help implementing any of that plan, then we can help you and align you with those products that align with your goals and dreams. And, that's really how it all started. And then it led to me creating books and workbooks and online courses and everything else because I just want to help people at large, because I think a lot of people are in what I call financial jail. They're stuck in their lifestyles and they don't know how to pivot their lives because of how they've created their financial worlds.
Exactly. And I really appreciate part of that story where you said you looked at the options when you were younger and you recognized that you could own your client experience, the client's journey, versus giving it over to a corporation that would ultimately own the clients and what was going to happen with them. Because I know that's how a lot of organizations today are still structured. And, the company still ultimately owns the clients that you've attracted and you've done all the work with. And my experience is that clients build a relationship with the advisor.
Right, exactly.
It's interesting that you use the platform.
Right. And it's interesting that you say that because for years, I sit on these advisory boards in the industry, and all of these gentlemen, because it's mostly white males who are in the industry 20 years longer than me. And it's very interesting because all of them were having all these non-compete problems because they were instilling in their businesses, their financial planning businesses, the same things as the corporations were to not compete, like fear-based, I call it fear-based, imposition on people. And I'm sitting here going, okay, so if the advisor really has the relationship, so even if I have other advisors that work for me, when I was building those plans inside my firm for my employees, I sat there and I said to myself going, who am I to kid myself? I don't own my employees' clients. They really do. So what is that for me? So I actually designed my employment contract to be with those advisors going, I just want to be paid for my time where you learned from me, where you grew, and when you did that. So we literally set up like a business arrangement on the back end going, if you leave and you want to take those people with you, I want to be paid for my time. So, a percentage goes back to me that you pay me to take them all with you. But if you don't want them and you're completely pivoting your life, I'll pay you for the ones that you built. Yeah. And I have found that sweet spot of where that works for both parties, because so often when we make financial decisions or employment decisions, it's got to be hooray for me and screw you. And unfortunately, the most of the world is set up this way. And I actually think that the new way of doing business is we have to collaborate together, because nobody's really a bad person. At most people's core, we're good people. We may have different opinions. We may want to do things differently, but doesn't make them right or wrong. Like, why do we have to have this polarity all the time? And so I just really try to create not only my client relationships, but also my employee relationships to where they're collaborative in nature, so everyone feels expanded coming out of it. And I don't understand why we can't do that as a world at large on so many levels.
Yeah. I've experienced all of those different things in my years in finance as well. And I've seen so many conflicts between larger corporation, the individual leadership at the branch level, and then also with the advisors. And for me, it's always been at my heart that if I'm the one that's really assisting them and they have that relationship and trust with me, that trust is so important, because I can go anywhere and just have a clerk look after me. But I'm not going to have that built up trust to know that you've got my best interest at heart, which is what your clients are telling you, the same thing.
Right. Because it's important. And, I read a book years ago that, why is it that when an employee leaves or a client wants to go, why can't we help them get them to where they want to be? Like, I want to be paid for my time to help them, but I guarantee you, if it's not working for them, it's also not working for me on some level. And it's okay for people to grow and expand, but we have this scarcity mentality that just like caps all kinds of growth from one good person to another. And we don't have to do that. We really don't. There's ways that everybody can win.
Exactly. So tell me a little bit about the scarcity mentality versus the abundance mentality, because I know that that's a big part of what you deliver as well, is thinking about how to create that abundance, not just in your wealth, but in your life.
Right. Well, I find that most people operate in what I call the hybrid model, where they tap dance between scarcity and abundance. And it's because if we look at it just from a financial standpoint, financially, like if you're operating with debt instruments, and I don't care if it's what we call good debt, mortgages, car payments, student loans, we could argue why those are good debts. But what they do is they don't allow you to actually make decisions in the present moment, because you're paying for all of your past choices. And that is the biggest challenge I see with debt instruments. Like, they can be a vehicle at a better interest rate, a few years ago, to leverage more and do this over here. Yes, I understand the financial numbers behind all that, but most people feel like they're in financial jail, or people would not be so excited and so happy when they pay off their student loans, when they pay off their cars, when they pay off their houses. So we, as a industry and a company or wide and country, that we need to actually start to look at going, why can't we choose to become our own banks? People who lived in the greatest generation did that. They socked the cash away because they were afraid the bottom was going to fall out again. But we have to look at you know, how do we clean up our financial past while living in the present moment and plan for the future at the same time? This is what I talk about in my book, Awaken Your Wealth, because I realized when I wrote my first book, The Emotion Behind Money, we all have this emotion tied to our money, and that's what makes us make decisions that aren't necessarily always in alignment for self. What those decisions, when you're on more of a scarcity model, every human being has some kind of rejection or trauma. Talk to any psychologist out there that hardwires into their amygdala. And that's your trauma or rejection. That is now how your subconscious mind is responding to the entire world. So and that's scarcity, right? It's fear-based. And then we bring people into our lives to test us. Are you going to still operate in fear? Or are you going to start operating in a place of abundance and empowerment, right? And until I believe that every individual soul work is to stop working from that place of fear and start working from the place of personal empowerment and abundance. And this is why people have midlife crises on an emotional level, because I believe we all came here to this is our soul's path. And then as our free will has made different decisions, the farther away you are from your soul's path or your heart's desires, the bigger the crisis you're going to call into your life to try to right ship it. And this is really, we don't have to wait for the crisis to shift in our lives. Because how many times do you see somebody go through a crisis and then they shift from being scarcity to being abundant? Right? We give so much energy to all this fear and frustration and anger and rage and just around in the society today. But that's all scarcity. And there is no way, if you as a human being have a hijacked nervous system, so if you're nervous or you're fearful or any of that stuff, if you've got a hijacked nervous system, your entire body is closing up. Your nervous system is closing up. So you can't manifest the raise that you want, the love that you want, or the job that you want, the relationship you want. You can't manifest any of that if you have a hijacked nervous system. And just pick the thing. All you got to do is turn on the news to find something that might hijack your nervous system, right? And so we have to be very mindful of how many little things are actually causing you to be very financially scarce or scarce in other parts of your life versus being empowered and abundant. I know that was a big answer to your question, but
it's a critical one, right? It's a crucial one for us to understand, because I work with a lot of clients as well. And if that scarcity and that fear and that worry and that doubt all comes forward in every aspect of their life. Right? So if they're struggling in their relationships, there's something there. If they're struggling in their finance, there's something there. And if they're struggling just in their career, there's the same type of thing. And I've worked with many people, and it's very interesting because it's buried so deep. It's just automatic reactions that come forward, automatic feelings that come forward that cause them to take that action reaction. And yet at the same time, we know that we can shift it if they're working with us in a way that's going to help them to do it in a way that's conducive for them, but also allowing them to see where they were to where they can be in doing that, going from that conscious to the subconscious. So it's such a powerful concept, but yet so many people still continue to live in that scarcity. So how do you shift that when you're working with your clients?
So, I've created a process. You can call it the non-nervous system hijacked process. To where, your compelling reason for change is picturing the life that you want to create. So if I had you, the second step in the process is looking at your reality. If I had you look at your reality first. So oftentimes when you walk into a financial planner's office, they're like, okay, give me your statements. Let me see your stuff. Let me see your tax returns. Let me see your documents, and you look at everything. But if you looked at reality, you're going to go down the path of woulda, shoulda, coulda. And all this shame, blame, guilt, and judgment starts to come to the surface. And so the process that I walk people through is I spend a lot of time with people picturing the life that they want to create. Because when I ask, first question I always ask somebody new that I meet is, if we're sitting here 3 years from now, what do you want to see in your life? And they always say, what do you mean, financially? And I say, I don't care. What would you like to manifest in your life? And they never talk about the money first. And it's because the money is actually just the result of aligning with your heart's desires in what it is that you want to create in the world. Because you're opening up your nervous system, you're opening up, because we have to understand, Einstein was right. Everything is energy. Each one of us individuals are energy. And when we realize that our emotions are energy in motion, however you're vibrating in your emotions is what you're pushing away or what you're pulling towards you. Well, we start to realize it's actually that simple. So like if you're around friends and you're sitting like, for us women, like they used to call them stitch and bitch clubs, right? Like you used to sit there and crochet or whatever. And women be like, if you're sitting around that are people are talking negatively or they're complaining or doing all that stuff, guess what? Lower vibration. Your energy is lower. But if you're around people that look at opportunities and things that you can expand into or think about what's going right in the world as opposed to wrong in the world, that's all vibration.
Yeah.
Right? That's why gratitude journals are so important, because gratitude is one of the highest vibrations that you can operate at. And so that's why the first step in the process is to picture what it is that you want to create in your life. And I have people tell me not only their financial worlds, what do you want in your family life? What do you want in your personal life? What do you want in your career? And anybody is welcome to go to my website. I have these questions that you can just grab them, put them to paper of questions that I ask people. After 25 plus years of doing this, like I figured out like the patterns repeat themselves from people, one after the next, right? And so then after you picture it, you want to accept your reality, but you also want to awaken your authenticity. So many of us are acting out in the world in drag and we don't even know it, right?
Yeah.
We are not being our unique selves. We are negotiating ourselves a little bit to make other people happy, because there are 5 ways that we as individuals respond to stress. We either people please, we try to fix it for other people, we entrain others to do it our way, we try to control our environment, or we disassociate. So if you're doing any of those in your world, you're negotiating yourself away on some form, some way, right? So the second step is accept the reality, and we got to wake your authenticity back up again. The third step I walk people through is choosing to change, like actually choosing that, going, okay, like I'm going to choose to be the creator of life. I'm not going to choose to be a victim of the system anymore. I'm going to choose to be empowered in my relationship and actually speak my truth, even though it makes me nervous. Like you're choosing that to do. And then the fourth step in the process is taking action. So most financial planners go with, hey, let's take some action and move some things around and get her done, right? I just had a client do that the other day. They sat in front of somebody at a big financial firm and they told them all these bells and whistles because she was right at the point where she was about to turn the corner. Oh, fear got the best of her. And she just transferred all. She went straight to the take action piece. Those people don't even know who she is. She's been through. Yeah. But they had her sign all the forms to transfer her money somewhere else, selling her a bill of goods because she's got $6 million. And that's not good, right? Like we have to start to make these decisions from who we really truly are, as opposed to what we fear might happen or fear that something will repeat itself. So I have found, I call it my PACT system, which my book, Awaken Your Wealth, spells all out. And it's also what my online course is, which is Impact Your Life Now. And I walk people through that process because at the end of that, what you've done is you've created a system and you've done it in a way that makes you feel safe. Because when we don't feel safe, that's when we go to our fear place.
I love that. I think there's so much that you just,
yeah,
so many amazing elements, because when we are dealing with anything, not just finance, but anything in our life, there needs to be something that gives us that recognition and gets us on that right frequency, that right vibration, to really be able to, you say, tune into your true self. Right. Because so many of us are living based off of what others expect from us. And, it's so true. And, I know, having been in the finance industry, I had to act a certain way and be a certain person. And when I was in that career, and yet there was a lot of things that weren't true to who I was, but I was expected to handle it that way. Right. There's so many people in their careers and in their businesses that are doing the same thing, feeling that this is who they need to be.
Yeah,
as opposed to who they truly are. So
exactly.
when you show up as yourself and you're aligned with the clients and you're able to help them in a way that's a much deeper, like
Uh-huh.
I don't know any other financial advisors that really do the work that you do with that.
They're
But
starting to
it
come out of the woodwork because they're
that's
starting to ask
it.
me questions like, how, and you built your business like this? I'm like, yeah, I have so much business. It's like amazing. That's why I keep hiring financial planners because it's like, this is where it's going because people are tired walking around not being themselves.
Mhm.
They're exhausted. And we learned a little bit of that in 2020 when the pandemic shut everything down.
Mhm.
You know, people are like going, they all of a sudden woke out of their slumber going, okay, I can't do this anymore. I mean, and that's being seen just in corporations are having trouble getting people back into the office because people like going, I don't have to commute anymore. Yeah, no, I'd rather take a job with less money because my
Mhm.
quality of life went way up.
Right.
Right. And I remember, you know, I had a job very early on where this gentleman told me, Julie, you have to stop hugging your clients when they walk in the door. That is not professional. And I was like,
Really?
I'm from the south side of Chicago. I don't listen real well on some level. I was like, I'm asking these people to really bring out their goals, their dreams, and pull their dirty laundry out of the closet and tell me about where have you screwed it all up. And you won't let me hug them? Like I didn't listen to him, you know, and then I'm going, but that led me to going, oh, I don't know if I really get along with this guy. Like I'm like going, that's actually
Mhm.
what made me go to my own office and incorporate because I actually, you know, in the business, you're supposed to wear a suit, you're supposed to be professional. I gave suits up years ago, and my office is now an exposed brick loft space in the West Loop of Chicago. And
Nice.
it's like, because I don't want people to feel that stuffy mahogany desk feeling when they walk
Mhm.
into my office
Yeah.
because that doesn't make anyone feel comfortable and it doesn't make them relax. It brings up all their shame, blame, guilt, and judgment. Like, let's hold a safer container for people to like unpack their stuff because we've
Mhm.
all got our stuff. The question is what's yours?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And yeah, I love that you have the open space, but at the same time, what I'm hearing is that when you really understand your clients and what you're wanting to offer to your clients, you can change anything the way you want it to be so
For
that your
sure.
clients also feel engaged. Because I know so many people that had come into where I was working, we were sitting behind that desk
All right.
there, and most of the time there'd be one of the couple that would be sort of giving their opinion. You knew the other person didn't agree with it,
Right.
but they were just trying to put their opinions in, and yet they weren't even aligned on what their main goal was together.
Yeah, I'm
So
often called a marriage counselor.
exactly. And it's really making sure that the couple is aligned because there's so much
Yeah.
different, like to think so many different things each of them needs to unpack to come to an alignment as well.
Right.
And having that open conversation with a couple is
Uh-huh.
really what you would need to be able to make sure that both are aligned and not one's feeling overtaken versus the other. We're just doing it because you wanted to, and now all this money's going towards this, and we need this. That's a really critical piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
And so
And I will tell you, like, our bodies are way more intelligent than our minds.
Mhm.
And I watch people's body language. You know, you mentioned how there's two people and one of them just clams up and shuts down and one of them's going to town. And the minute that one's done going to town, because I then stop responding and just let that person get it out, then I turn to the other person going, how do you feel about that? Fine. I'm like, I don't know if you're fine because I'm watching your arms crossed across your chest, which means you're trying to protect your heart, which tells me that you actually don't agree with everything that just came out of your husband's or wife's mouth. And I just want to know what that is. And then I look at the one who was yapping and I
Mhm.
go, do you mind if I just dig for a little bit here? And they always go, fine. Like cause like they know what's gonna come out, right? But I'm gonna have it come out in a container that has clearly their container has become unsafe on some level. But every human relationship goes through this. So it's not good or bad. It's just let's get to it so that you guys can grow together from this point forward, so that you're not annihilating each other and having a trauma meeting a trauma from all this subconscious mind stuff that runs the engine 97% of the time, right? Consciously, I don't think most of us know that only 3% of the way we respond to the world is based on our conscious choices versus the tapes in the back that are hardwired into our subconscious mind. 97% of the time, that's what's running the engine of what runs out of our mouth. And until we can get our nervous systems to a place of being the observer and not the reactor, or the responder versus the reactor, you're going to meet a trauma and you're going to keep annihilating each other. And that's why generations repeat stuff, because people don't interrupt that patterning.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. So now I understand that you work a lot with entrepreneurs as well.
I do. I'm an entrepreneur myself, so I get it, right?
Well, how do you break through that glass ceiling with your entrepreneurs to help them get from, because most entrepreneurs will get to a set point.
Yeah.
And they sort of level out, and then all of us, but they have dreams to be up here. How do you work with them to help?
Oh, you have to go after the subconscious mind, because that glass ceiling is 100% of all the limiting belief systems that they have hardwired. And it's usually generational. It's usually not just in their lifetime. It's something that, came down from generations. So for an example, like if I know somebody's family lineage, and let's say great-grandparents or grandparents came from Eastern Europe. Well, I know to ask all the questions around communism and how did that affect your family? And I get stories like, oh my God, when my grandpa died, we found 300 grand in a suitcase in their closet. Like, these patterns actually is how their parents behaved in their household. And it's playing a role in everything that you do, especially when you have been more successful than prior generations.
Right.
So you're breaking through all kinds of family gunk, right? Because it's not only your families, but it's also the communities that we grow up in, right? So we have to look at what are those belief systems, because all those belief systems are just entrainment for you to behave and plug into the world, all done with good intentions, but they may be what's actually holding you back because it's a belief system. And so I start knocking down their belief systems. And so what that is that boils down to, you have to start building the trust muscle of following your inner knowing more than your conditioning.
Yeah.
Right? And what got you to where you are today is not going to get you to where it is that you want to be. You are not going to have that quantum leap where you aspire to be by doing it the same way. And it's you've usually built your business up to this point based on fear and trauma and drive and pushing and blocking and tackling. And to have that quantum leap, you got to do it a completely different way. You got to build that trust in your knowing, more of your gut instincts, and following, obviously, smart business management, but start with your knowing and your heart and before you add your smarts. Like, that's got to lead the way, and then add all of your intellect after that. It's not your mind that's going to get you there. It's going to be those gut instincts. Problem is, when we're breaking down limiting beliefs, we don't necessarily trust those gut instincts and that inner knowing. And that's what we got to go after. Because usually people don't feel like they're enough. They don't feel like they're worthy to have that kind of success, or they don't feel loved, or maybe everybody that they love won't identify with them once they have that success. That's a big one, right? And so it's going after that not enough button, not worthy button, and not feeling loved button.
I can see that in one of my family members right now, because one of my nieces is ready to make a big leap, a big quantum, and a big change in their life. And others are like, oh, I could never do that. Oh, that, it's like they're holding themselves back so much, but this one group is ready to move forward to take this big quantum leap. And I'm like,
right.
And they're entrepreneurs. And so it's really fun for me to be able to be a part of that and see all of the different people, how they're responding to that breakthrough for someone else, right?
Right. It's so true, because that's where I talk about where there's crabs in the buckets. In my first book, I have this whole chapter on the crab in the bucket, my Emotion Behind Money book. We talk about, like, if one crab goes into a bucket, that crab can crawl out of that bucket, no problem. But if you put 10 crabs in a bucket, every time a crab tries to crawl out, the other crab's pulling back in. So when you're about to make a quantum leap, you really have to mind who you're listening to, who you're talking to, who you're hanging out with, because they may not be supportive. Like, my mom was an English teacher, And when I was writing my first book, she's like, "You're writing a book." I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "You were my hell child to write 5-paragraph essays with in 5th grade." And I go, "Mom, I got my degree from the University of Illinois, and then I got my master's at the University of Notre Dame. I think I figured out how to write, but she got it in her head, this girl that was really hard in 5th grade to get to write 5-paragraph essays." And I'm like going, "Oh, note to self, don't talk to mom about the book writing until it's actually done." And it was funny. I was like, once it was all done and I gave it to her and I go, "Mom, you want to edit my book?" She's like, "I'd love to edit your book." And I was like, "You're right." And she's like, "I only found 6 mistakes." Like in her mind, she couldn't figure out how that little girl just produced a book that only had 6 grammatical errors from her perspective, being bilingual, right? And it was like, "You taught me a few things, Mom." But so we got to just be mindful of who is the company that we're keeping and who's on our team for the quantum leap and who's not. Minimize the time and the words spoken with those people that aren't supporting that dream. Because if they're not supportive of it, talk to them after you got there. Or maybe they'll just fall out of your life because they're not meant to be in your life anymore. And that's okay too. But sometimes that's hard.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's needed.
Yeah,
Because
for
there
sure.
are people that try to hold you back,
Right?
pull you down and, belittle and all those types of things and put that worry, fear, and doubt into your mind when you've already got that vision and you've got that desire and you've got the things that you want to do in place. And it can be tough on the heart sometimes, but at other times you'll end up being with the right people and surrounding yourself with the right people at each level that you get to.
Absolutely.
New doors
And
open.
can I mention something on that? When we can get to a place where we can understand why that's happening with the other people, your consciousness level raises. So this is what I talk about when you become the observer. So if you can observe that somebody's like lashing out, they're poo-pooing your idea, they're doing all that stuff, as opposed to you like reacting or even responding, if you can get to a place where you just observe going, "Well, that's interesting. I really didn't expect that person to respond like that." Because when you say the word interesting or like, "Well, I'm curious why they're doing it," you're keeping yourself in neutral when you do that. When you're the observer, you stay in neutral. And it's so important that you stay in neutral because then that's happening and projecting towards you because they have something in unrest in them that you have activated because you're going after your stuff and they're going, what's unresolved in me? Because just you going and expanding yourself for your own reasons upsets the apple cart with other people because then they self-reflect on some level, whether it's consciously or not, going, "I identified with this person before, but now I don't identify this person." And now it's activating these things inside of them. When I started to realize that just the nature of who I am, I don't need to open my mouth. I can walk into a room, not say a word. The light and the vibration that I carry disrupts everybody's unresolved stuff. Because we're all energy and we all carry a vibration. And I've always been of high vibration, high energy. People are like, "How do you do that?" I'm like, "I don't really know. It's just who I am." Right. Like, and doing that, but it was a suffering pattern for me for years that people would walk away. People couldn't handle being like, I feel like people not handle being happy or go get the life that you want. Like, I've just always done it. I remember the day that I walked into my parents' house and I told my parents that I got into Notre Dame. My older sister, the look on her face was like, and she just walked out of the room. And I followed her in there after a bit and I said to her, "Mare, what's up?" I go, "What's going on?" She goes, "Is there anything you don't do?" And she just started sobbing because, like, "Mare, you can't be me and I can't be you." I used to tease her all the time. She's in the medical field. And I'm like, "Mare," I'm like, "I've told you for years, you're going to do the caretaking with mom and dad, and I'll be writing the checks throughout because I'm not a caretaker. I'm not going to sit there. I am a go-getter. I'm the person you want in an emergency. My sister's the one you want there when you just want to be cuddled." Right? Like, I'm not going to cuddle you. I'm going to tell you to sack it up and come on, let's go. Let's get her done. Right? And neither one is wrong. That's what we have to understand. When other people show up in the world differently, it is not wrong. It's just different. And we can start observing that and go, if somebody really has a bad reaction to you and what you're going after, my biggest recommendation to you is to send them lots of love. And you don't need to verbally say that. You can just visualize it if you pray or if you meditate, or even if you just have a thought and go, sending you lots of love and gratitude for the time that we had, because what that does is it raises it for everybody, because we are all connected like an energy grid.
Yeah.
And even when I got divorced and my ex-husband was not a good advocate in my world, I would just send him gratitude and love every day in my meditation for the beautiful 4 babies that I have. And I prayed that at some point, and I'm not a big religious person, but I would just send it out going, I want the highest and best for me, him, and my children. And, we finally got there. He's got an amazing job now, moving into the career of more how he's wired. We figured out the co-parenting stuff. It took us a little while to get there, but somebody has to hold the container for the higher thing to occur. And those who are not willing to play that game with you, okay, maybe not for now, but if you hold the potential and hold the container for yourself to rise and others, it happens. Everything, the cream rises to the top. It really does.
Absolutely, it does. And I've witnessed that so many times with not only myself, but with my clients. And I know I've even walked down the street one day and we used to work by a university, and I saw this young lady in front of me walking. She was probably like a block away almost. And she was her head was down. I knew she was having not in a good mood. And I just sent her that energy. She turned around and looked from far in, sent her the energy. So that to me, is like, you know what? We can make a difference just by sending energy.
Totally.
And all it takes is that vibration to get to somebody with that love, that caring, that concern, whatever it might be, and that joy.
Yep.
Because we get to choose joy.
And so the ones that lash out at you the most, those are the ones that need the most energy sent to them. Right? And you don't have to do it to their person. Like my ex-husband couldn't hear me for nothing when we were divorced at the beginning. So I just kept doing it and trying to talk to his higher self. And it works. It really works.
It absolutely does.
And it's a simple, low-cost solution.
No lawyers involved.
Right? Totally.
That's awesome. Well, this has been fabulous today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing, because there's so many elements that I picked up today, and our viewers will, I'm sure, pick up as well. So I highly encourage you to subscribe, like, and follow, because this is one of those ones you're going to want to come back to many, many times to hear Julie again, because there were so many amazing elements in here, from just how to be able to craft your own story, how to be able to get into your own energy, be your true self, how to be able to attract that abundance, and also how to manage your energy. So, so many brilliant pieces within there. Now, you've mentioned your book, The Emotions Behind Money. So how can people find that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So all 3 of my books are actually on Amazon. The Emotion Behind Money, Awaken Your Wealth, and The 4 Spiritual Laws of Money. That's my most recent one that came out. Yeah. And certainly you can always join me on juliemurphy.com. I do have an online course that I walk people through that packed process with. And like I mentioned, that's, it's right on my website, juliemurphy.com, and it's impactyourlifenow.com. And I have all kinds of stuff. No matter where you're at, I have free tools. I hold a free workshop once every 8 weeks. And to me, it's just about the things that I've learned in working with clients for 25 plus years. I want to help the world at large. And it's time that we all start helping each other a little bit more. So join the people who help you build the life that you want to create. That's the bottom line.
I love that. That's a fabulous way to end today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, Julie. We'll make sure we put all of those links up in our podcast.
Thanks, Sally. I appreciate it. Thank you.